we're talking about Todd Gurley here, third round running backs. He's late second, early third at this point. There's some headlines worth talking about here.
Yikes.
On Todd Gurley's knee.
Yikes.
I'll read it here. ESPN's Von McClure reports that the Falcons are considering limiting Todd Gurley's workload in training camp. So we're already there. We're already back to where the Rams were last season with Gurley, where they're limiting him, especially earlier in the season, so that way he can carry a full workload. The report also points out that Gurley walked with a noticeable limp during the early phases of the Falcons' acclimation period. His current ADP is the RB15. Gurley, to me, is all based on how these reports go. I'm trying to avoid him with every fiber of my being right now. I feel awful for the guy. And this is the case of the names that, if he's healthy, he'll be great, like James Conner, A.J. Green, T.Y. Hilton, Chris Carson. And I actually like him a lot in Atlanta. I've been on the Todd Gurley hype train. Are you fully fading Gurley with these reports? Are you still kind of waiting to see how things shake out? Only missed one game last year.
I'm worried, Steph. I'm so worried about Todd Gurley. It's tough because he's only missed 7 games in 5 seasons, which for a running back actually isn't that bad. Yeah, you said it. He missed 1 game last season. But these narratives are getting scarier and scarier, and it's just tough to know what to believe. It seems like last season there were all the reports about the knee and things like that, but Gurley came out and he was a high-end RB2, rushed for 12 touchdowns. The only reason he wasn't an RB1 is because he didn't get as involved in the passing game. And he seemed fine last year. His snap shares were up. So, I'm just worried. It's like the last straw for me. I just don't know why I would take Todd Gurley as an RB2 if there's this much concern about him. Like we just talked about, if he's my RB3 and I'm going to go RB, I don't mind Todd Gurley as my RB3, but to have him as my RB2 and potentially have a player that could be going into the season barely able to walk is just really concerning. So for me, I'll tell you about our Dynasty League. I got an offer, Todd Gurley and a 2021 first-round pick for Austin Eckler in a full PPR league. And I don't think I'm going to take it because Gurley to me could – yeah, I'm in win-now mode, and Gurley to me could come out and be nothing for this season. And if he's done this year, he's probably done for his career. We could see Todd Gurley retire after this season. Who knows? But there's also a world where Todd Gurley comes out and he's effective. Atlanta is going to use him. They signed him on a 1-year deal. So that's the piece where I'm like, are they really going to shut him down when he is on a 1-year deal? So it's just something you have to account for with Todd Gurley. You don't really know what Atlanta's going to do. You don't know how they're going to use him. Devontae Freeman averaged 5 targets a game last season. If Gurley can get that type of passing involvement in this offense, even if his touchdowns are down, he's going to be a high-end RB2 and RB1. So there's just so many factors with Todd Gurley. There's upside in this offense, but then there's also the risk in this knee. And for me, this is the icing on the cake. I wasn't really that worried about it. But hearing reports like this are not things you want to hear going into your draft week. And that's going to make me tilt in our draft staff. If Todd Gurley's on the board, it's going to be really, really hard for me to take him.
He's been a touchdown monster. He's been relatively efficient on the ground until about last year when he was at 3.8. But everything about Todd Gurley is an upgrade over Devonta Freeman last season, who finishes the RB20.
For sure.
Ran at 3.6 yards per attempt, 59 receptions. So the upside is certainly there with Gurley. We could be, clowning ourselves here in a couple months if he just comes out and is what Todd Gurley is. Again, double-digit touchdowns the last 3 years.
Here's the thing for me. I know I'm preaching how concerned I am, but for me, I think the upside is enough to where I don't feel comfortable with him as my RB2, but I don't want to buy so much into the reports that I erase him from my draft board.
Exactly.
So for me, I'm probably bumping him down a spot or two just if there's a safer option behind him. Maybe I move Fournette in front of him because the risk is getting up there with Gurley, but for me, it's more of a tiebreaker. If I'm sitting there and there's elite receivers like, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, OBJ, guys like that, maybe I use this as a tiebreaker and I'm like, oh, those receivers have less risk than Todd Gurley does, so I'm going to go with one of those guys. But if he's a value on my board, I'm still willing to take him, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's not going to be like a injury fade like James Conner, who I feel has way more question marks. And there's other names like Benny Snell got a bunch of uses last year. Jalen Samuels vulturing in the passing department. So I feel better with Gurley versus a James Conner for all those reasons. And the question really becomes, if it even is a question that we should talk about, who's the handcuff? Who's the RB2 on the depth chart right now in Atlanta? Is it
Steph?
Quadri Allison?
I got trivia for you. Who led the Falcons in rushing touchdowns last season?
I actually know this one because I know it's not Brian Hill, so it has to be Allison.
Quadri Allison led the Falcons in rushing touchdowns last season with 4 and 2.3 yards per carry. So he was probably cramming it into his left guard on the goal line repeatedly, and that's like the only run he got. But you're right. To me, there's no clear handcuff for Todd Gurley. You got Allison there, Brian Hill, and Ito Smith. I think the handcuff for Todd Gurley is Matt Ryan throwing the ball 700 times.
So really, it's more like Calvin Ridley or Hayden Hurst at that point.
In a really weird roundabout way, that is correct.